Hello, my name is Dan Swain, and today we're going to be doing a quick tutorial on Nancy or NancyFx. Okay, so let's get started. So if you open Visual Studio, NancyFx is basically a micro web framework. It's essentially like MVC, it just seems to be a lot simpler. At least that's my interpretation. So if you start up a new classic web application, if you can find the blank web application template, use that, but I can never seem to find it. I'm going to call it Nancy example, if I can spell. Yep, still can't spell. I'll just wait for that. So it's pretty cool. If you listen, Scott Hanselman did a podcast on it last week. I'd recommend listening to that. It seemed to be good timing, really. I've been meaning to do this for a while. And I wrote the tutorial, and then Scott, timely released the podcast. So I thought I'd actually finish this up. Okay, so if you delete all the crap from this, the default project template, and just leave that. Let's just see how simple Nancy can be. We add a reference with NuGet. Search for Nancy. We're going to use the Nancy hosting with ASP.NET in this example. You don't have to. One of the big things that I say about Nancy is that it can self-host. In fact, you can see it down here. Or you can host it on OIN, which is apparently Microsoft are actually going to start supporting the OIN specification, as I understand it, which will mean that it will be easier to host .NET applications on other platforms like Mono. So that's very cool. It's brilliant that they're doing that, and obviously Azure, of course. I think that's probably, they're trying to make everyone use Azure, so yay Azure. But it's brilliant for us. It's brilliant for choice. I'm still going to use ASP.NET, which will bring in dependencies on system.web, which Nancy strictly is written that it doesn't have any dependencies on system.web. But yep. So yeah, sorry. Install that. That'll bring in the hosting. It'll bring in Nancy as well because it's a dependency. Yep, we got both of them. I'm also going to add in a dependency on the Nancy StructureMap or Bootstrapper's StructureMap because part of this example I hope to get to just configuring StructureMap with it. Off we go. Cool. So we close that. We see Nancy's actually added it as web config, and we see that it's basically got nothing in it. It's fantastic. We've essentially got a handler. And that's purely the Nancy hosting with ASP.NET implements Nancy as an HTTP handler, which you would exactly expect. I believe MVC is also HTTP handler, so nothing magic there. Liking that. Now, whereas MVC sort of centers around the controller or the MVC pattern and the front controller, Nancy is a bit more freeform. It doesn't impose the MVC structure on you. Their sort of main construct is what they call a module or a Nancy module. I think they really kind of, I use it as a REST framework, like for a RESTful web service framework, more so than a full web stack. But Nancy is more than capable of doing rendering. It's got bits in there for is it the Spark, View Engine, and Razor. I'm not actually going to go into them in this tutorial at all, but it does have them. But for me, at least, it's really good for just very simple web services. So I'm going to do a quick example, which is going to be a car classifieds RESTful-ish web service, and just to show the basics really. So if I create a car module. The main class in Nancy seems to be this Nancy module, which you inherit from. There you go. Let's just include that. On the Nancy module is basically a lot of the magical properties that we just showed actually. So if I create a constructor, the first thing that everyone says about Nancy or notices is that it doesn't do it the normal MVC way. Nancy module exposes HTTP verbs, which if I just say get and then status, and that's the routing. So I've just added a route in to my application or web service. that's just like, you know, wax status, and then I just say it passes you parameters. If you look at the signature, it's a dynamic. I don't really care about it. So by convention they call it underscore. It can be anything, literally, but you know, underscore is the convention, it seems. Goes to, and then I'm just going to say hello world, and that's my minimum Nancy module. So if I just build that, I guess you can modify my web config. Come on. Okay, so if I just hit status, there you go, we've got hello world. So we've successfully written our first Nancy module. Now that wasn't that simple. We're going to get a bit more complicated, just to, you know, not make it too simple. But yeah, the Nancy module exposes post, put, delete, all your, you know, lovely HTTP verbs are there. It's just very simple to, you know, access them and sort of use them. It also does, as we're about to demonstrate, it also does like the sort of the pattern matching, similar to the MVC routing engine, where I've got ID here. I am going to take notice of these parameters, so I'm going to call it parameters. But Nancy will magically, you know, realize that that's a token, and it will append it to this parameters dynamic object. There you go. I need a semicolon there because I am still in the constructor. Almost forgot. But this parameters is a dynamic dictionary. It's really kind of magical, or it's at least very convenient. I'm just going to say int ID. Now, because you know, Nancy's magic, it's applied the ID property onto the parameters dynamic dictionary, so I can literally do that. And if I were to add more properties in there or more parameters, it would just magically appear on them. So that's cool. And then I'm going to return negotiate. Now negotiate's another handy property that's on the base class. It's like just a fluent interface for you know, returning HTTP results really. So if I said with status code, I can do HTTP status code, okay, or any of the others, and I just say with model. The ID is going to be my model, so not much magic there, but let's just run it. Right, there it is again. Now, if I get an actual HTTP client, here's one I prepared earlier. In fact, is it the right port number? No. Should have changed that. I just clear that up. So we're just using, you know, a simple Chrome plugin here to do the. It's called Dev HTTP client. It's really good. I recommend it. If we just hit /car/123, according to the code we've just written, it should just return OK status code with the model. So let's give it a whirl, shall we? And we've got a response of 200 OK, fantastic. And we've got a body of 123. So that works. So that's Nancy taking the ID and adding it to the parameters, and then we just fling it back. So that's good. So Nancy also comes with some simple model binding. So let's write another one. I'm only going to do get. You know, it's the same. It's, you know, post is just as easy really. I'm going to say a make and a model of car. Well, we haven't invented car yet, but we will in a minute. So we've still got parameters. You can call these different names. It's just, you know, I'm just choosing that name. I'm going to say var car query, and I'm going to say this dot bind to bind car query. The original name, So this is another built-in class. It's on the Nancy module again. It just does simple model, binding basically. This type doesn't exist yet, but I'm just going to give it 2 strings of a make and a model. Now the magic of Nancy should just sort of map that across really quite simply. So that's cool. And then maybe what we could do is we could also return a list of I just say a list of, come on, it's not that hard, not car module, but just car. We don't actually have that yet either. So a car is going to have, let's just give it an ID, a make, and a model. Right, nothing clever. Let's just do, well actually, let's not return it straight. Let's just store it as a variable. List of cars, we'll use the negotiate again. So I'll just say new car, ID equals 1, 0, 1. The make can be the var query, that should be car query, dot make, and model can be the var query dot model. Let's just change that one. I'm just going to copy and paste it a few times. So obviously in the real world you would probably be accessing a repository or some other service to make meaningful, useful responses, but this is a demo. Come on. Never done. Back. Still can't copy and paste after all these years. Right. So we've got a list of cars in our collection there, and then let's just do return negotiate with response or with status code. That's okay. With model, list of cars. Bang. So that should work in theory. Let's just rebuild that. Oh, I've forgotten a semicolon. If I had one pet peeve with Visual Studio or a sharper, is it knows I need it. Why doesn't it just put it in? Okay, let's hit again. So, bang. Oh, so that's the old one. Let me just clear that. So if I do /Ford Mondeo, because we love them. There we go. We've got our JSON response back. It's that simple. So that's Nancy working some magic. It's bound to the car query type. It's just done some simple mapping. We give it a collection, and then it's also managed to transform that into JSON on the way out with negotiate. So I'm hoping this is like making Nancy look really easy to use. At least I think it is. So what about if we go back to this example? What happens if instead of just picking up off the the parameters, what happens if we actually want to say this car doesn't exist? What happens if someone just types a random a random number in? Well, what about if we say if the ID is 3231, then we throw an exception, like a car not found exception. Oh no, an original name. Okay, so we've got an exception. It's inheriting from exception. Let's just build it. If we go back to our client, car /123. That should be fine. But if we did 321, no, if we did 321, ooh, internal server error. So what you would expect if you had a car not found or a file not found would be 404. But at the moment we're getting an internal sort of server error with a basically stack dump sort of error. Not quite what we want. So how can we get that to, instead of doing that, to actually return a nice error response? So what Nancy lets us do, it's a different thing, but we can create a Nancy, and they call it a bootstrapper. Nancy bootstrapper. Cool. So if I inherit off the default Nancy bootstrapper, will I be able to spell? No. There we go. I inherit off that. One of the things that's on this base class is I can override the application startup. There it is. Bang. I think that's the one. Is that the one? No. Application startup. Maybe it was there yesterday, I swear. That's it. So that's the Nancy, startup thing. What we can do is we can get access to the various pipelines. We've got this after request, before request, and on error. You can guess what these do, but I'm going to go for the on error one. So this would mean this gets called every time an error happens. I think it's context and the exception, and then again more lambdas. So every time an error happens, Nancy's going to call this on error or raise this on error event and call this code. So if I just say if the exception is car not found exception, and only if this, then we need to return a new response. Underneath everything, response seems to be the sort of the base Nancy response type. Ultimately, you can actually just return like a status code, HTTP status code, and Nancy's smart enough to convert it into an actual response with the appropriate status code. If you look at it, I think there's like, instead of the one in system.net or wherever it lives, they've got one in Nancy as well, which I think is what they're using to do that magic. But it seems to work with both, from what I've seen anyway. But it's really clever. It's very, very convenient. So new response, status code. Well, I want it to be not found. Status code not found. So if the car's not found, the status code should be not found. The content type, that can be anything really. Text HTML will do. The contents, this is a stream. It's all very nice and performant. Let's say error message equals to, what is it, encoding dot UTF-8. I always get this wrong. Get bytes, and then just the message of the exception, perhaps. It's not moan. That's good. I think I might have got it right. First time for everything. Let's write to the output stream. So we should be able to use the error message, and we should be able to say the beginning of it, and then just to the length of the error message. Length. Yay. Nothing moaning? Well, hey, that would happen. Okay, so that's our response. We do need a semicolon there. So if it's not that, we just return, and this is the casting the status code to an actual response, I can just do that. There you go, and it's still a lambda. So, hopefully, if I build that, if the type is car not found exception, the if statement should hit, it should set the status code to not found, and we should see still the same sort of Nancy error message. Otherwise, we should get the internal server error. Okay? Let's see if that actually works. Oops, bang. Not found. Exception on Nancy type NancyFx. Can't argue with that. Brilliant. So that's how to do sort of errors in Nancy. Right. Now let's change that code a bit, because one of the other things we always tend to want to do is inject things into our constructors. To do that, what we need is basically, I'm going to use StructureMap, but we need to modify the Nancy bootstrapper again. So instead of inheriting from the Nancy bootstrapper, I'm going to inherit from the StructureMap Nancy bootstrapper, I think it is. Oh, what a guess. This is wrong because it's expecting the default tiny IOC container. I now want the Nancy one. So in a very dubious way, I'm going to get rid of that. We'll cut it to the clipboard. Override. Application startup. We'll now see that it's a I container, as in a StructureMap one. Fantastic. Paste the code in. Everything should still. I'm going to keep doing that. Everything should still work. Don't explode, don't explode. Yay! Just for showing off. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 work. Fantastic. Brilliant. So, back to the Nancy bootstrapper. So we've got the Nancy bootstrapper. We probably also need our normal sort of IOC container stuff. So should we just put that in a second? Where is it? So if I just call it StructureMap container. Okay. Just can't type. Public static void configure. We'll accept the iContainer. Yay. Yep. Definitely don't want the component one. Container.configure. Config goes to config.scan. See? Gosh, this gets convoluted, doesn't it? Just the calling assembly. We're just going to keep it really simple with the default conventions. So that's our IOC settings, and we just need to wire it up with Nancy. Back to the bootstrapper. If we just override, what's it called? I think it's Apple. Sorry, memory lapse. Configure application container recipe. Yes, that will do. And if we just said StructureMap StructureMap container.configure. There you go. So Nancy's done its stuff, and then we just pass it on to our container, which we get it to scan our assembly. And that should be it for the Nancy IOC stuff. So what we could do is we could have a iCar repository. Initialize the field. Not create the type yet. And what we could do, is we could say I want to just use the repository, and also get by, or get by ID. Just give it an ID, and I want a car back. There you go. And I don't want that. I'm just going to move the negotiate stuff up here. And I'm going to return the car. So I've just got rid of the logic. In fact, I'm going to move this into the repository. Oh, come on. Oh, I've created. Okay, create the interface. Brilliant. Let's go here. Yep. Well, I know it's going to be a car. Let's get someone to implement this, shall we? No. Oh, go away. Sorry. Public class car repository. Inherit from iRepository and iCar repository. Bang. Implement the thing. Yay. Okay, here we are. I'm just going to steal that bit of code. Good old copy and paste. Paste it in. Otherwise I'm going to return a new car with a make of Tesla, I suppose Tesla, and a model of Model S. No prizes for guessing what car I'd like. If I even had a car. And the ID can be ID. Fine. There we go. So if we set up our StructureMap container and the bootstrappers correctly, we should be able to still work. And this should get a different response now. This should get what was it? Card. So that should still get an exception, which it does. But 123 should actually get JSON response. So there you go. So we've just proved that the bootstrapper works as well. So that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's it really. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with Nancy. I'd recommend checking out Scott Hansman's podcast. I've actually got the written version of what we've just done here as well. I'd recommend looking at that. Shameless plug. And the Nancy website, the documentation is really good. Most of this is actually based off that documentation, so definitely recommend going there. Thanks again and good luck.